Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the hero's journey, where you can kiss your doubt goodbye and embark with confidence and love on your quest to become the hero on your journey back to wholeness. Together with Brilliant Mind, we venture into the unknown to revive and mend what is torn and to patch what is missing. And today I'm thrilled to introduce you to Charu. Charu, I reached out to her on Instagram. I came somehow across her profile and I was like, wait a minute, I know this woman. I've seen her twice on the Dispenser YouTube channel. She has 2 testimonials up. And I remember very clearly, especially in her first testimonial, it resonated with me so much. You mentioned that you were like hyper aware of everything that you were thinking and feeling, and that kind of sent you into a loop, and you had to ground yourself again, which is something that I have experienced as well. But long story short, she went from suicidal to truly loving herself, and then also to finding love and a beautiful relationship with her current partner. And I'm so excited for you to tell us more about your journey on your way back to self-love and to your wholeness and to your heart. So Charu, the mic is yours. Thank you so much for coming here today. And where do you think your journey, your initiation has started?
Oh, well, thank you for that introduction, and thank you for reaching out and giving me the opportunity to share parts of my story that I feel are really significant and shaping who I've become today. I think my initiation started back in 2020, and it started with sort of like this trailer before the movie's coming out, and I was doing meditation, and I was trying meditation for the very first time. And this wonderful intuitive was leading this meditation, and I just went in and I had a really profound experience, which I look back now and I understand. And in that meditation, I had received a message very clear, and it just was like, remember who you are. And at the time, I had nothing to do with meditations. It was a very strong pull to just try this one particular meditation, and I tried it. And I asked the teacher, what does it mean? What is the significance? And she said, it will be revealed to you. Don't think too much about it because the brain gets involved. Like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So that was beginning of 2020. COVID had not yet taken over our world. It was January. And towards the middle of the year, I had severe heartbreak because my marriage with my then husband had broken apart. And the world was such an isolated place at the time because COVID had just happened. And you couldn't talk to anybody. And I was in New York City and you couldn't go out in the streets. And here we were in an apartment, ending this marriage that I really had been holding on to with like my fingernails, and the final realization that it is coming to an end, and just saying those words to my husband, like, this is it. And I think that was the beginning of the initiation, because that decision had been in my heart for a while, but I never had the courage to go through with it. And then something happened with my then husband that sort of was the last straw. And I had, thankfully, enough love for myself in that moment that I said, this is the end of the path. This is it. You can't go anymore with this person.
Yes.
And so that was the start.
Well, that's an intense initiation. I was wondering, how did you feel during that time when you were thrown in the unknown? Like your life takes a significant turn, or like it's becoming different. The person that you have been for years or maybe even decades is no longer in your environment. How did your emotional and mental well-being uh, develop from there?
Hmm. It was a really tough time. Honestly, I've come such a distance that
Mm.
I had to really think before
Yeah.
this chat of what things were like. That's how much life has changed. So if anybody's listening and is in a tough place, please know that things change so much that you don't remember them that well, and that's a good thing. Um, but at the time, just because of the dynamics of what was going on in society,
Mm.
with COVID and complete isolation, with my family being overseas and not being able to come to US, and me being in this place, this old apartment with my ex-husband, and us deciding to part. And um, it completely shattered my worldview.
Mm-hmm.
I had not imagined a life without that marriage. So for me, it became existential because I felt like, oh my God, who am I without this person, this marriage? Am I anything? Am I worth anything? And unfortunately, the real answer at the time was no. I thought everything was gone, dead, and my ex moved out of the place and it was just me, and I became intensely suicidal at the time, and I was in therapy and getting excellent mental health support and all of it. But there was something so deep inside that had just shaken, and I realized just how empty it felt inside and alone. And I didn't necessarily want to engage with the world. Very few people even knew this was going on. Like the innermost circle knew what was going on. I'm a intensely private person, and my ex and I parted on good terms. I really loved him, and yet decided to walk away. And so, given the dynamics of all of this, right? I couldn't even clutch on to anger as a
Mm-hmm.
crutch to sort of be like, I'm going to charge ahead, right? I
Yeah.
didn't have that. And so I was falling apart. I have never felt such deep sadness. And it was not just because I was lonely, I was also ashamed that I didn't think, I didn't know myself. Um, and I was like, what am I? Like, I felt like I was nothing.
Mm.
And that's where I was at.
Wow. Thank you for sharing this with us. Where do you think there was a sort of like a turning point? Did you come across some knowledge, or did you notice like an inner shift that things were starting to getting okay? Or where did the journey go from there?
It had to, unfortunately, really go downhill for it to come up. So, amidst all this, I was trying to figure out what to do, and I couldn't
Mm.
do much because when you're going through so much grief, you have very low capacity
Yeah.
and you're just surviving day to day. I continued with my job and I just immersed myself in work, and it was a great, healthy choice because it was the only part of my day where I just was like, I'm going to become this person that's going to get this done like a professional.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as that was over, it was my time of like, okay, what do I do now? I'm in this house. Uh, where is my husband? Where is my life? And all of that would start again. And so that became really dark very soon. And when it got really dark and I tried to end my life, I actually had a strange mystical moment, which I understand now. At the time, I wouldn't even call mystical, I would just call it super weird,
Mm-hmm.
where I was wanting to end my life. And I heard a voice, and the voice very clearly said, "This is not the end." And it was kind of like marching orders. It wasn't this like, oh my God, this. No, it was very clear, like, this is not the end. And it was not a loud voice. It was almost like, am I hearing this right? But it was very clear, and it got to me, and I stopped in that very moment, I stopped and I said, if this is not the end, then show me the way. Because I was completely clueless. And the very next day, I think the very next day or in the next couple of days, my sister, who had been following Dr. Joe for a while and we hadn't really spoken about it, called me, and I was not really speaking to people at all. But I took that call and she said, just try this guy. And I was like, okay. I definitely rolled my eyes and I looked him up and I was like, I don't know. I had seen him in the movie What the Bleep Do We Know, but I was like, I don't know. Do I want to do this? But, thanks to algorithms, as I was researching him, I found his video on YouTube. And there was this very short interview where he was talking about how he wakes up in the morning and he's so happy to be alive. And I just was getting so annoyed listening to this. And, you know, coming from me, I was like, oh my God, there will be another day, to Dr.
Yeah.
Joe, who's like, I can't wait. And then he said, if you do this work continuously and honestly for 60 days, your life is going to change. You're going to wake up happy to be alive. And something about what he said and the way he said it and his own story really got me. And I was like, well, there's nothing else. I've tried everything else. And I know I can say goodbye anytime, but maybe I should just try this one thing. And that was the start. That's how I started. And I started with whatever meditation I could buy from his website. And I just got in. I had no idea what it was. And somehow, somewhere, it gave me I still get emotional talking about those first few meditations because I'll never forget them. It showed me there was something else outside this 3D reality. Very early on, I felt it and I was like, oh, I just want to go there. And that was my hook to why I started meditating every day, because it was like I was addicted to, like, I got to get out of here, so I'm going to go there in a very healthy way.
Beautiful. I love that. So you didn't even read the books. You just jumped right in the meditations, and then later, or like step by step, you're reading the books and maybe some courses. Beautiful. I love hearing how people come across the work because it's always such perfect timing, and it's always so synchronistic. Then I think like you cannot make this up.
That's true.
Awesome. All right. So you were escaping basically in a healthy way. You were just like broadening your awareness and getting out of this tunnel vision of like, oh, my life sucks. Where's my husband? Where's my old life?
Mhm.
Were the emotions becoming stronger? Like, how did your emotional well-being develop from there? Some people I heard the emotions getting more intense because they are getting more aware of them, what is actually inside of them, and this can also sometimes throw people off. And for others, like each has their very unique journey. So I'm curious how this journey of broadening or expanding your awareness was for you.
Yeah, it's a great question. Of course, now looking back, I can tell you what it was. But something to remember for anyone listening who is in the spot now is you can only join these dots later, and you will. But at the time, it feels like you're in the middle of a storm and it's a never ending storm. And it really was. To be very honest, it was all emotions. I would feel great. I would start to feel like good in meditations. And then as soon as I was out, I was like, oh my God, this begins again. And and it really was. Every time I would see my ex, or like I would even think about moving out of this apartment, I was constantly swimming in frustration, hopelessness, extreme anxiety about the future, worry, lack, severe lack, and maybe a tiny bit of hope that I would get after I would do the meditations of like, maybe this will work. But it was mostly a soup of like a lot of negative emotions
Mm.
and a lot of pain, a lot of grief, deep sense of loss and confusion. I didn't have any
Mm.
clarity. And I moved, a huge decision at that time was to leave my old apartment and just plant myself in an entirely new space. And I knew from reading Joe that that was going to be important, because if you're staying in a place that is reminding you what was, you cannot become a new person. So I got that very fast and I said, okay, well, I'm going to just move. So I plucked myself out of there and I got a new apartment and I was by myself. I had so much time. Most of that time was devoted to two things. One, a complete immersion in my work, so I could deliver professionally as a designer. And two, in just holding myself straight, physically, emotionally, mentally. That was it. That's the project I had. And it was exceptionally hard because all I wanted to do was cry, which is what I did. Cry, be hopeless, look at other people, and just have this pain in my heart of like, but everyone else's marriage is working. What happened here? Why me? Why not them? All the rainbow of like lack. So that was where it was. And then when I started meditating, um, I used to feel really good during the meditation. But getting into the meditation was really hard. I have countless meditations just crying, bawling, feeling like, is this not working? Is this working? This sucks. Joe Dispenza doesn't work. He doesn't know anything. He's lying. He has an easy
Just going
life.
to an event to give him a smack.
It just was like high and low, high and low, high and low. And that was my life. And when I had started meditating, I did a little bit in November, December 2020, and then my New Year's resolution for 2020, which I have never made. That was the only year I made it. And I kept to it, was like, I'm going to meditate every single day, morning and evening, like Joe Dispenza says. And I gave myself an hour and I said, you're free. You have no kids. You have no husband. You have time. You have your work. You eat well and you take care of this. And I started doing that. And that really was the project. And there was, in the 60 days, so from January to March, January and February, and then a little bit of March, there was an arc. And this arc was all about hating to meditate, completely frustrated. I don't know, what is this? I don't know, who am I? This is not working, to feeling like this shift. There was something that was shifting. I couldn't really give words to it, but I started having the strange experiences that now I had developed some vocabulary. I had read Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I had listened to his interviews and figured out, oh, this is a mystical experience. And once I started having those, everything changed.
Beautiful. Do you want to tell us a little bit about these mystical experience? I remember Joe says sometimes it's not really important like what you see, it's like how they change you. So were they like unopening like this box of self-love, or maybe like inner knowing that you forgotten about, or uh how was that?
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of saying that. It's true. I think because I had so many experiences. If, like, even in the testimonial, I talk about, like, in this meditation, I could not sit anymore, and my body was throwing everything at me: pain, itching. I wanted to scratch myself. It was just like, oh my God, I don't want to sit here. Everything, everything, everything. I was crying. And I felt like the grief I had worked through, but like there was a tsunami of grief coming up, and I'm like so confused, like, wait, there is more grief in there. All of this is happening. And all I want to do is get out of meditation. And I had been listening to Joe before, and he was saying, you know, when you get these moments, all you have to do is get beyond the moment. That's it. So keep sitting, keep sitting. And that day it was really hard, and I really tried it, and I got beyond the moment. And as soon as you get beyond the moment, there is a peace that comes down your body. Body really settles. And suddenly your attention is not on the body, and your attention is really not on anything. And it's like this really loud space suddenly becomes like pin drop silent. And I felt like I could hear this presence say something to me, and I could not see anybody. I just saw like this giant sphere, and I was like, oh, it was green. And I was like, I don't like that color. I like yellow. And it just responded back, like, make it what you want. And I was just like, somebody here, like, what's going on, right? My mind was trying to understand. And I thought the color yellow, and it became yellow, and it said, that's who you are. Remember who you are. And that's the second time I had heard these words. And so it was a very deep experience, in not that, oh, this happened and that happened, in that I knew that I was communicating with something that's not my brain. And so that was really exciting. It was very, it filled me with hope that there is something, and I want to know what this is. And I was very lucid in these experiences. So I started understanding, like, my brain is not creating this, because I'm not at all thinking about any of these things. So that was one. Many times I've had beings in many meditations, and this is even not even at the retreats. This is just at home at night. I would be meditating, and there was this one time where I saw what looked like a group, and I remembered I felt my eyes were closed, but I looked at the corner of the room with eyes closed, and I was like, I can see my room with my eyes closed. Am I making this up? As I'm asking that question, I sensed a presence, and I looked in the corner, again, eyes closed. I saw a group of beings, and they were looking at me, and I just was like, okay. And they just said, do you trust us? And I found myself very automatically saying yes. And I also found a little part of my analytical brain being like, really? And so I said yes. And then I got this really profound healing that very night. And I didn't understand it. They downloaded something through my throat, and they really pushed my head back. And they pushed my head back in such a way that my head was really far back, and my forehead was almost touching the walls. And so the back of my neck was hurting. And I said, this is hurting. Like, and they said, do you trust us? And I said, yes. And so something happened, and they downloaded this form that looks like a cylindrical, I don't know, crystalline form. I didn't understand it at all. I just was like, I'm going to allow. And after that, I fell into a deep sleep, deep sleep. And I had no idea what happened. I woke up, I didn't feel anything. I still had only one throat. And I just was like, oh, okay. But now I look back, and I think this is my theory. A lot of people told me after my journey that, your voice has really changed.
Mm-hmm.
And my voice has changed before 2020 to now. I also sensed a difference, but I think that was something that was probably an after effect of that. I don't think they came here to change my voice. I think they just did like some type of a healing, and this
Yeah.
was the after effect. So that's an
Wow.
experience.
That sounds a beautiful experience. That is really, really, really mystical.
Yeah.
Awesome. Afterwards, were you feeling like a significant shift that you were not reacting the same to your environment or to your situation? Were you noticing a shift in your attitude towards yourself, or like were you thinking more nicely about yourself and about the world, or was there still a lot of effort required to change? Like, did the mystical experience, did they just like snap like, oh, okay, everything is gone now, or was there still a little bit more to overcome and to yeah.
That's a great question. I had a lot of health issues while I was navigating this divorce. And a lot of it was, I now understand, was completely related to this ginormous amount of stress I had, where I
Mm-hmm.
had developed so many allergies to things. I could not eat anything. I had my skin became very, very problematic. I had acne that would not go away. And I was so bothered with oh, I'm never going to find someone else again. I was getting like these steroid injections in my face just to get those acne to go away. And then I just was doing, I was all over the place. I was, I think I was trying to navigate this whole spectrum of who am I? How should I live? And how should I behave? And it was a complete chaotic mess. Beautiful mess, but it was complete chaos. It was not at all a straight line. It was like spirals and labyrinths. And some days I would be doing really well, where I was like, I'm clear. I'm gonna do this. I feel great. And then there were days when I just was like, yeah, but look at, I would go to a park and see people and see families, and it would really trigger me, where I would either be annoyed, exasperated, hopeless about my life, jealous, um, and it would bring me back to what I didn't have. And also navigating life as a single woman again, money, um, rent, finances. You get to be responsible again for all of it. And that was also adding to a lot of pressure. So it was, I felt like I was in a very high pressure situation. And um, for me, all my health issues, all my emotional issues were coming, going. Like I would never get rid of them. It felt like at some point. And in the middle, I went to my first Joe Dispenza retreat, which was transformative, really changed my practice. I understood a lot more. What
Mm-hmm.
is it that I'm doing? I got to meet, not meet, but like see Dr. Joe in person. And I got to tell him, like, um, thank you for sitting through your fire so I can sit through mine. Like, I could really see this is somebody who has walked the
Mm-hmm.
talk. I was really touched by how he carried himself, how he was as a human being. And something shifted in me when I met somebody like that. And I was like, okay, this is a different way. And I want this. And so I made that sort of the center of my life, that let's see how these people are doing it. And so I immersed very deeply into it. And that's when you were talking about from the testimonial, that I really started becoming very conscious of how do I think? What do I think about myself? What are my deepest beliefs about myself? Why did I get so shaken up with this divorce that I wanted to end my life? Like now I had a little bit of distance. And so I could question why you value yourself so little that if one relationship breaks apart, you're ready to end your life. right? And that work led to me reading a lot of really good books. And I read this book, Worthy by Nancy Lewin, and it really changed the way I looked at worthiness. I really did all the exercises, and the answers I gave for why I feel like this, why I feel like that, they were coming from these really deep layers of me that had been hiding and ignored by me. And they were really the driving factors of my life. And so I was doing that. I was doing the meditations. I was at the same time also trying to deal with the emotional household that sometimes felt balanced, sometimes, many times felt out of balance. I was also using psychotherapy continuously as a support. And so for me, this was not at all one mystical experience and it's healed. I think I had that mystical experience and I had many more. Every time I think my vibration was high enough, I had an experience and it worked. But I think for me, I had to make so many systemic changes in who I was that I couldn't really have one thing that would just be the end of it. I think for me, it was just like slow, incremental change. And I really had to forget that I had all the stomach issues, all the allergies. I had to forget. I just had to focus on, like, okay, who are you? You're going to go to that party, or you're going to go out and have this business meeting, work meeting, despite the acne on your face. You're going to still feel that you are highly worthy. And that's how I think I was able to make those changes, because I was coming from deep unworthiness. And so I started checking it at all these steps. Every time I even thought about dating, my mind would be like, no. And I honored that because I knew that I had to do a lot of work right before we get in. And so I did. And so for me, I think it was a completely spiral path and it's never ending. I am still doing it on many accounts, but it was definitely from one mystical experience to the other. And it always gave me hope that I must have raised my vibration enough that something could touch me in the way this experience touched me. So if I can do it once, I can do it again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes beautiful sense. And I love when you how you talk about those small but mighty changes, especially more in the way like you didn't buy new clothes or new makeup, you were accepting yourself the way you are and just saying, I am worthy no matter what's going on, and then still going to the business meeting with maybe not perfect skin. Can you tell us a little bit more about other changes, like the way you changed maybe also your thoughts about yourself, or like in what areas did you do these changes?
Great question. Many things. I did so many things. I basically made myself my project. I took my entire attention away from everybody, my ex, his family, my family, who's saying what, all of that out. All the attention was on Charu. She was my project. And I said, if I was to redo it, if I have this chance, maybe this is my chance to redo my life, how do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And breaking the habit of being yourself was very instrumental in figuring out what do I want to be. And I knew I felt deeply undeserving, unworthy of healthy love. I felt that. I also felt really ashamed about the divorce because I was really young and divorced. And so I noted all this down of what I felt. And I journaled, I talked to my therapist. And then when I did the exercises of breaking the habit of being yourself, I started noticing that I had these patterns of thinking, right, that all feed into each other. And unworthiness doesn't just show up as, oh my God, my skin is not perfect. I'm not going to go here. I'm just going to hide. Unworthiness also shows up as if you're with a partner who you don't feel 100% with, you're going to suck it up
Mm.
and you will take it and you will not make change. Why? Not because that person is great. No, it's because you think that that's the end of the flow. There's no one else. And so a lot of limiting beliefs, right? I had this limiting belief like, um, you only fall in love once. Complete BS. I had another one about soulmates, like, oh, you only have one soulmate. And so, sorry.
I was just like,
Yeah, yeah. So lots of like these little things that were just so limiting. And then, oh, you're approaching 40, like you're not gonna find anybody, or people are gonna be like this and that. So lots of limiting beliefs about what I had, how my hair was, how my skin was, so many things.
mm,
That's the whole playground. So the first step for me was just I remember being so astonished that I had so many limiting beliefs, because once they came up I'm like, oh my God,
they keep coming.
am I the only one? I said, is this is all me? Like, I for a minute I felt like a lot of shame, because I was like, I'm a little bit ashamed that I think like this about myself. But I remember Dr. Joe always says, like, when you're taking stock of your situation, don't jump into shame and guilt, just with loving kindness. And so I said, okay, yes, yes. So the first step really was for me to figure out why I was in this situation. And what was my part in the breakup of this marriage. I think that was hugely significant, because relationships are a two-way street. And for me, I figured out that this unworthiness, this belief that relationships are hard and you have to make compromises and blah, 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 all these limiting things that you hear culturally, especially as women, they were the driving factors for why I had not heard my higher self, my intuition pointing to me for so many years that this is not it. This is not it. And yet I stayed. And so that was my part in it, of saying yes when I should have said no, that it doesn't work. And it had nothing to do with the other person. The other person was doing what was good for them. And so that was significant. That was a moment where I felt like, okay, what did I do? And again, I started to slip into guilt and complaining and blaming myself. Oh my God, what did you do? Hypercritical. And then I had to pull myself with a lot of self awareness, like, okay, if I said yes when I should really have said no, then that means that the power really lies with me. I can say no next time when I really mean to say a no. And so that was a major shift for me. And I remember that shift very clearly, because that, I think, was the first time I really understood what it meant when people said, step into your power. And for me, that really explained to me, like, you don't know, don't think about anyone else. What was your part in a certain situation? If you can take stock of that, that very painful thing that you did or did not do is the very thing that is also your power. And unless you see it, unless you're willing to see, what did I miss? How did this happen? You cannot see that, oh my God, that's the key. And I can twist this key the next time. And it was such a major shift for me. It really changed everything for me, because I just figured out, this is it. If I have this one key, which is the key to myself and my intuition, which is another thing that I deeply dived into on my spiritual journey. I learned how to listen to my higher self, and it had been speaking to me this whole time, my whole
Mm.
life. I just could not hear it. I heard it and ignored it. I heard it and said, come back tomorrow. Like, not today. Today I'm happy. Don't say it. It was like, no, 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 no. This relationship, no, no, no. And I was like, no, no, just come tomorrow. Just ignore it.
Mm. Wow. Thank you again for sharing all of that. That's very helpful to see and to hear how you navigated through that. Another question that just popped up was, you mentioned you had so many limited beliefs. What sort of did you use a tool? Because I know sometimes when they come up and they come and they come up because you're getting more aware of them, did you use journaling to write them down or like cross them out and write a new one? Did you work on one belief and then jump to the other, or how did you just meditate and surrender into the void and it kind of cleared itself? So how were you approaching this?
I am such a visual person because I'm a designer. I
Mm-hmm.
need to see things out there. So what I did was I had post-its all over my place.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I'm like, I don't know, doing makeup in the bathroom, and I would be like, oh my God, I have this going on in my head. And I would just note it down on a piece of paper, post it, and just stick it on the wall where I would see it. Because I didn't want to forget what was that limiting belief. I wanted to shine a light in every single dark area of my brain. And what happened with me initially was I would think about these, oh my God, yeah, this is a limiting belief. Then I would go and do my thing. And then later I would be like, what was that limiting
Yeah.
belief? I don't know
What
what
was
it
it
is.
again?
Yeah. So I think first, just the fact that you can catch yourself thinking that limiting belief is victory number one. And then number two, if you can write it down and really like put it somewhere where you are faced with it a few times, not too much, you start to feel a bit more comfortable cleaning out the closet. I just was like, yeah, I got it. And then I had a, a lot of post-its, a lot. And then, it's really funny because then you can join the dots like, oh, I feel like this, like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees. And then I had stuff like, this is never going to happen. I had a lot of like nevers, very exaggerated. Never, this done never happens. It doesn't happen like that. And I'm like, huh, for someone who believes in the unknown, you sure have a lot of nevers. And so you get to join the dot, and I feel like it just explains to you your own thinking. How do you think? How do I think? And that's enough. That step, I really feel like when he says in the book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, like just taking stock of your emotional household, of what do you believe in? What is the exact thought? That's a significant step. And if you can put it out there, once you write it, I think Dr. Joe says once you
Yeah.
write something, your brain has made a connection. And now it can't really slip back into the unconscious. And I really think that neuroscience is correct when it says that once it's come from the unconscious to your conscious, now you can really change it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I think I did that. At some point, you really start to notice like these patterns once you have all this information. And then you start going and like, what I did was actually very simple. Also, that I just turned the belief upside down. So if I believe like, oh, I never can do this, I just turned it to like, every time I'm thinking that thing now, I'm going to just do the opposite of like, I always have it.
I love that.
And that was that was so weird. The first many times I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm faking it, like this is not blah blah blah. But something shifts when you change your thought. very consciously. It's like, no, I hear you, but no, I'm not going to think like you. I'm going to actually think that love will find me in the most exquisite place and I will be super happy. And something does happen and it starts becoming more real. It became very real for me. And I'm a jewelry designer, so these post-its were not really working for me in that you can't really take them with you. And so that time period was the start of my other dream of creating jewelry that would be reminders of your meditative state, because you can wear them and you always have them and you are always checking up on them. I'm like, oh yeah, wow, well, what is this piece? What was my intention again? And so you can bring yourself back. You're sitting in the office listening to boring people talk about blah, 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 blah. Your mind is like, yeah, this is all never going to work out. You're going to be fired. So the mind is going somewhere, and then you can see your piece and bring yourself back. Like, no, but my intention, my future self has said, and we've decided that we are unlimited and we have unlimited possibilities. And so that's really, in short, I guess that was a very long answer, but that's really how I took Charu as a project and just said, if I had this chance to redo it all for her, how would I do it?
Awesome. Did you notice then, like you were giving, like you were going all in, and you noticed like step by step more improvements in your well-being? Or was there ever a point where you kind of looked back and like, oh my goodness, I'm not depressed anymore, I'm not suicidal anymore? When was that point where you noticed, oh wow, the old person is really mostly gone?
Yeah, it was people who noticed it before I did. Yeah.
I love that.
People started, my friends, like my closest friends, um, people that would meet me, they would just say, like, people who knew what was going on behind the scenes about the divorce. And, they would tell me, they were like, whatever you're doing, just keep doing, because what has happened is profoundly difficult. And yet I see you, and it's fantastic. And it wasn't that I was sunshine. It's just that I think in 3 or 4 months of this practice, there was a clear change in me. I was happier. I was still dealing with lots of things, but I had come back to life in many ways. I had started reconnecting with my friends. I had really started to find aliveness in my day. I was happy when I woke up. There definitely came a time when I woke up in the morning for my morning meditation, and not once did this thought come to my head of like, you're alone. Why? Because I was like, we're waking up and we're going for an hour meditation. Then my day was decided. And I think it's very profound when Dr. Joe says, like, you can make a habit, make these habits then, where you get up and you are alive and you're just going for your meditation. And I really did that by not by meditating every day. So I used to do an hour in the morning and an hour at night without fail. And on my bad days, I would even do 1 or 2 meditations during the day. But I really made that a habit, kind of like brushing teeth. And I think the great benefit of that was that my day by default started to change. And I started to not even notice that I was missing somebody. And, by the time the divorce finalized and things were really out on paper, it was still a very pointy, painful moment, but I was a very different person than the person that had started. I wasn't desperate. I wasn't desolate. And I wasn't feeling weak within myself. And I remember that moment because I noticed the shift in my life. I remembered signing on those papers and walking out of the attorney's office and, taking a break, and you're in New York City. It's like chaos everywhere, blah, blah, blah. And
Mhm.
you're standing in the chaos. And I said, well, onward to our new life. And I felt very solid. I felt very solid. I remember that moment. Like there was this core solid in my center now. I didn't feel empty anymore. And that was a palpable shift. Um, and then that only solidified as I dived deeper and I went to another retreat, because every retreat I took it as learning a skill
Mhm.
and really going in with complete surrender. Like, I'm not going to put expectations on this retreat, but I'm going to go with, I don't know anything and I would like to go deeper. That was always my intention. And
Mm.
the experiences with the divine became so deep um, that it completely, I think it changed me at a cellular level, honestly.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was really beautiful to hear. And then from like your first testimonial to your second testimonial, so you found your journey to your own love. Oh, yes.
Mm.
So you were noticing the way you carry yourself throughout those difficult moments. There was a new baseline of self-love and love. Like, even you still have emotions, like you're still human, but it doesn't
Yeah.
drag you down to your core anymore. It's like there's the heart is open. There's a beautiful self-love, and it embraces and has empathy for everything that happens to you. At the same time, it's also like a joyful life that is there to stay. And then how has this led you to your current partnership, loving relationship? Um, how did this unfold from self-love to having this self-love manifested as a beautiful relationship with another beautiful human being? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, that was also a spiral path. It was not a linear path. um, so I think the very fact that I took my attention off from the world and put it completely on myself for the first time in my life in such a holistic way, where all I wanted to do was understand myself, get to know the woman I was. What did I like? What do I not like? Like, very truly, very authentically, what is it that I like? And it was funny. I had a marriage with somebody who was very creative, very intelligent. But I think what happened to me was that I sort of dissolved in it. I let myself dissolve, my point of view dissolve. So I didn't know what I really liked, what I say no to, what is an absolute deal breaker in anything, even in the food. And so I always answered many questions as, oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm not sure. And so while I was on this journey of figuring myself out, I never called it self love, but it is, to me now, it is the very definition of self love, because I think self love is not an abstract concept. To me, it's very simple, and it was very simple. Take your attention off from criticizing and judging and analyzing and helping the others. Do all of those to yourself, hopefully criticize less. But even criticism has its place, right? When it's coming from a place of like, yeah, that was not a good choice. I would rather do it this way next time. So I think taking the attention away from the world, putting it on myself and making myself my project was such a fundamental building block for me, that when I was ready to find love again, two things happened. I remember this very clearly. I was at a Joe Dispenza retreat in Denver, and I had no inclination to date or anything. I was not even thinking about this topic because I felt in my analytical head it was too soon. And I had exceptionally profound mystical experiences in that retreat. And after one of those walking meditation experiences where I just was transported somewhere else, and I was out there in the Denver cold for 45 minutes just having this baptism with the divine, the very next day, I had this very lucid moment. And in this very lucid moment, it showed me like this, almost like a film. And I was like, where is this? Because I haven't even seen this place. And it showed me like 2 feet. It showed me hands, and I was holding somebody's hand. And I looked at my hand and I was like, oh, yeah, this is my hand. But whose is the other hand? And it won't show me what the other hand was, but just some inkling that there was somebody. And I was like, is this a is this a thing that I should pursue? I had this question. And when I came back from Denver, to me, it was very clear that you're ready. And doing all the work had really established a very healthy relationship with my higher self. And so I could really know and follow my intuition very clearly. And it was a very clear, like, yes, because I began to doubt it. And my fear mind was like, oh, I don't know. You've not dated. I had never dated. I met my ex outside of the dating scene. So I was very nervous. Again, fear is coming up. I went through that whole thing. I fell many times. Then I one day caught myself. I'm like, hold on a second, fear, you have come in a different outfit, but I see you. And I decided to get into the dating scene. And in New York, there is a lot of it's very difficult. There are more men. There are such gorgeous women. What's going to happen to this and that? I had all of those. My friends had something to say. Everybody had something to say. And I knew better. I knew that that lucid dream was not created by me. And I said, I'm going to take this as something fun and exciting. And I had never dated before. So I took it as like, let's go on an adventure. The key thing there was I was a very different person, Anne. I was very solid. I felt very solid in my practice. I knew when to ask my heart a question. I knew when my heart answered, and I had the courage to follow that answer, no matter what it was. And my directive was my first relationship was created with the mind and the heart, but maybe more mind. Now I'm a different person. I would like a divinely designed relationship. Like, show me what you got. And so Dr. Joe had this thing in one of his videos where he was saying, make a list of all the things that you want. And, and I really feel like for me, it was more like, make a list of all you want, and then you become that list. And so my quest was for 3 or 4 things that I really wanted in a person. And I said, this person has to be emotionally intelligent, not afraid of change. I want it to be a really good looking, smart, intelligent person, because I think they're very humorous and funny. And I want him to have big dreams. And I wanted him to be a chef. Not by profession, but like I want him to make great food. Those were my things. And I said, this is the list. I am the list. I have worked very hard on myself to become this list. But this is my list, divine. And everything else, how it looks, which country, blah, 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 like surprise me. I don't care how tall, how this, how that, surprise me. And that's how I got into the dating scene. So I was very clear on what I wanted, very clear on what I was offering, and very clear that this is fun. We're going to go and see. And so I went on a lot of dates. I gave lots of chances to people, and I had made up my mind that if anybody nice that I'm getting along with asks me out for a date, I'm going to at least go and meet this person and see how it feels. And it's funny, and every time I would go, it's like I have opened the door and I'm walking in, and my heart would be like,
No.
blah 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 blah. No, but blah blah is also very short. Like, this is a guilt, da la la. No, and I'm like, but there is no explanation. So I would just be with the people and be like, is my heart right? And it was phenomenal, because when you got to know the people, you could see that the heart picked up on
Mm.
why this is not aligned. It was not a criticism of the other person
Mm.
or judgment. It was more that why this is not aligned with you.
Yeah.
And that was powerful. And I listened to that. So for me, dating became really fun. And I got a lot of confidence from it, because when you go and meet so many people, you really hone in on what you like, really what you're okay with, what you can't. And that's how it began. I went on like so many dates in 3 months of dating. And then I was done. I was tired. I was exhausted. I didn't want to drink so much anymore. So I was like, that's it. Like, my liver can't handle this. So, and it was getting a little bit funny, because, there were some people that I really liked. And my heart was like, no.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really caught up. I really tried to reason with it. I was like, but what about that? Like, this could be that. They would have done this because of this. I tried to explain it, but it was a very sincere no. And I had some, not, no bad experiences, but sort of like, I should have listened to my heart. It was
Mm-hmm.
correct. And so when I was tired, I just was like, okay, that's it. I'm going to take a break. Too much trying. And that was funny, because I was on this dating app, and I was sort of deleting my profile, and it figured out that I was deleting my profile. It was like, oh, do you want to like see the last 9 people? And of course, I was like, okay, last 9, swipe left, right, forgot about it. And that's how one of those people that I didn't set up the date, and I didn't even try to chat him up. Like, I didn't do any of the things that we usually do when we're interested in people. Neither did he.
Mm.
And yet we were brought together on a very spontaneous date, without him or me trying, really. It was just like, hey, hi, how are you? Oh, okay. Do you want to come here? No, I'm busy. Maybe another time. And that's it. And then my now husband changed his mind and just came and was like, hey, I just changed my mind, I'm coming. And he came, and I described this moment in my second testimonial,
Mm-hmm.
that I was standing with my friend, and it really was a profound experience for me, because my heart had been talking about people this whole time. It had been saying, no, no, this. And then my husband walks in, and I look at the door, and my friend is like, oh, I think that's your date. And there is this silence. And I'm like, somebody there?
Hello.
What happened? There was just this beautiful silence. And I looked at my husband, and I just was like, oh my God. I just remember feeling like, oh my God, there was nothing else, no processing. There was just a silence. And then we met, of course. We immediately, we just knew. And we were brought together. It was so clear. And I mean, there is so much more there, but that's really the path. And it was long thing to say, but if I had to say it in a very succinct way, I followed my heart's leadership.
Mm.
And I let my heart lead. I didn't let my mind get involved, because my mind was filling me up with like, oh my God, there are so many beautiful women. You're not tall enough. You're not short enough. You're not thin enough. You're not fat enough. You're not this, that, da, 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 da. The heart, it just like cuts through everything. Can you hear it? can you muster the courage to do what the heart is saying, right? And I did. And that's how it started.
Beautiful. Wow, that's a really beautiful story. And is he a good cook?
He's a fantastic cook.
Did you
On
also
our
work?
third date,
Did you
on
work?
our third date, I tried it out already. I was like, he offered to cook for me, and I was like, check.
Did you also work on your cooking skills when you were saying you are becoming the list? Were you working on the on your cooking skills as well?
Yeah, I am a good cook. I just
Amazing.
don't enjoy the process. Like there are some people that really enjoy cooking and do it for relaxation, like my husband
Mm-hmm.
now. I am good, but I'd rather not cook. But if you make me cook, I'll make you something nice.
Nice. Nice. All right. Thank you so much for sharing it. That's such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful journey to witness throughout this, how you described it, from really starting from zero or just like from scratch again, and like gathering the little parts that are left of you together, and like discovering the self-love that's always been inside of you, then all the way through chaos where you have to redefine yourself and like sort out what is you, what is not, getting to a stable position, and then the true self-love, and then knowing what you want. And I love that you were uncompromising, because I hear that also a lot, like, yeah, relationships you have to compromise, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure if I want to believe that. And that sounds so beautiful, that like two whole people come together and they have their own source of love, and then together their love amplifies. It's just a really beautiful, 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 beautiful story. Thank you so much for telling
Thank
your
you.
journey.
Yeah. Well, I would just want to add something about
Sure, go
compromise because
ahead.
I think it was something that I finally understood. I think compromise is not bad or good. What I've found out, when is compromise not constructive?
Mm,
When it is not, when you're doing something out of alignment, when you're not in alignment with what the inner knowing, inner dreams, inner desires, what that's saying. If you're making a compromise and you're out of alignment, then it's not a constructive compromise. But if you are making a compromise out of sheer love
mm,
for this person or for this dream or for this job, because you're doing it from a place of love, then I think it's a very constructive compromise. But what I was saying was, in my previous marriage, knowing that the marriage was not working for me,
mhm,
I knew that deep inside my bones and my cells. I knew this is not it, and I stayed,
mm,
and I didn't make any effort to change that, to work on that. That is making a compromise to stay out of fear. You're afraid. I was afraid that I'm gonna not find anyone else. Where am I gonna go? Those were literally the thoughts. So it was a compromise made out of fear, and therefore it was completely out of alignment with my higher self. And so that is a compromise that it can never lead to anyone being happy, least of all you.
beautiful. Thank you for shining some light on that. That makes sense. The way that you described it, that makes a lot of sense. Um, what I usually ask my guests when, like, the hero's journey, then there's like this last part, it's the return, the new self. So we've gone through this whole integration process. And then when they return, the hero brings the gift back to the community. So what would you say would you like to share from your heart, in a few sentences to those listeners? What is your wisdom that you would like to share with us?
Well, I would say if you're listening and you're in a place that is tough, that is rough, and you are challenged, even though it may be really difficult right now, know that if you stick to it and really listen to whatever this challenge is saying to you, is bringing to you, and don't just deal with it with your mind, but deal with it with your divine self, which you can access through meditation, then you will come out of this challenge a completely new person and with a very new life. And you will be exceptionally proud of all of it. That's what I can share. In 2020 to now, it's 5 years. And when all of this happened, I only looked at quotes where it said, the storm, when it's over, you will not recognize who you are. And that's what the storm is about. It's a Haruki Murakami quote. And I understood it intellectually, what it meant. But if you really apply it, if you don't run away from it, if you stick with this, what is it? Why am I in suffering? Why am I in pain? Why is this area of my life not working? You will figure out that the most important key leads back to you. The most important reason for why that area is the way that it is leads back to you. And once you realize that, you just change that. And that's all you have to worry about. You change what you have to change in yourself. Forget about everyone else and watch for magic, because magic happens when you only focus on yourself. The divine shows up in this big, huge way, and your life becomes like a living example of a collaboration with the divine. And I feel like that's what my life has become. And it's so beautiful. You never feel alone again, because in your deepest loneliness, you're with the divine and you know it. All you have to do is close your eyes and get back to that feeling that you touch in meditation. And it's this knowing feeling that, how can I be alone? I'm with the divine and the divine is with me. And so please don't doubt your meditations. Just keep going. We've all been there, had so many meditations that didn't work. I'm sure you can say that too, right, Anne?
There's always something happening, even though if you don't feel like it. I've read actually the first book by Dr. Joe. It's called Evolve Your Brain, and there's a part at the very end where he says something about science still doesn't know or cannot really explain this. When people when they change, for instance, with intention, there was an experiment that they conducted. They changed with intention I think the pH of their body, or just like the blood pressure or whatnot, and they didn't even feel something was changing inside their body, but it still changed. So sometimes there's this beautiful, maybe they know more about, because Evolve Your Brain has been a little bit of an older book by him, but I thought that was such a cool part to read, and I was like, that means even though I don't feel anything in my meditations, something is happening. And that's so
Yes.
important. Sometimes you don't have these crazy mystical experience, or like crazy heart openings, or I don't know, maybe sometimes you just feel the void and you're just like hanging in there, and you still kind of you're relaxed, but that's it. And even though if it's a challenging meditation, there's still so much happening behind the curtains, because the intention alone, and you're sitting down to meditate, that alone is already signaling a new signal. So something has to change. And yes, that was very eye-opening for me. But once I really got that, because I was like, man, come on. Like, why
Yeah.
is just pain still there, or discomfort still there? Why is yada yada yada? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, something is working, and maybe I can even change these thoughts behind that. Maybe I can say, um, even though I don't notice a change physically, it's still working. I am divine.
Yeah.
I am a child of God. That's my new favorite, uh, that I got from who was it? From Kevin and from Punya, also two individuals that I interviewed, and they were tuning into this, like, I'm a child of God, so I am natural worthy, because they had to find this worthiness in themselves as well. So they tuned into that and finding some self-compassion through that in them. So that was really profound. So also, thank you so much for sharing all of that. That was a really beautiful journey and such profound insights. And I'm sure there were a lot of people who can relate to some parts on your journey and be like, okay, if she's done it, then I can too.
Yes. Yes, you can. Please. I mean, I used to listen to testimonials when I was on the path, and it just was like, okay, it's possible. Look at what they did. Like, yeah, I can do it too. Okay. It's so simple.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. I know you have a beautiful jewelry um, uh, that you are creating.
Line.
So, where can we find you on YouTube, Instagram? Give us everything that you have. I'm going to link it down below in the episode as well. But I love the idea, like you were saying, the jewelry, you can just like put your intention on top of that, and just when you can touch it, or when you might remember yourself wearing that, like you can reconnect to your intention that kind of grounds you in the present moment, and just like remembering what this is all about. So please,
Yeah.
where can we find you?
All right. Well, the name of my line is Divine Amuleto. Amuleto is a Spanish word for amulets. And divine, we all know. And to me, these are divine reminders that we are human and divine. And it is jewelry that is meant to be your meditative companion. I call them as companions because I sit with them in my meditations, and I think gemstones have these properties where every gemstone can carry a specific frequency. And so I've matched all that information with certain messaging that was really important for me. Like the one I'm wearing right now, I call my becoming necklace, because I really feel like believe, behave, become. That's all you need to remember. And sometimes, if you can remember it as you're going about your day and make a different choice, it can change your life. And so Divine Amuleto is my website, www.divineamuleto.com. And as you know, I run a podcast as well called Your Colorful Path, where I invite people and share my own journey of finding our human and divine selves. I think if we can understand that we are both human and divine and remember it and hear it, something deeply changes in us and we become our divine selves. And so it's called Your Colorful Path, and you can find it on Apple, Spotify, worldwide, everywhere, on YouTube as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone who accompanied us to Charu's journey back to wholeness. That was a beautiful, inspiring journey. I hope you could take a lot of notes and wisdom with yourself, and I see you on the next journey. Thank you from my heart for being here, Charu, and hope to see you once again. Bye.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity and such great, beautiful questions, too. I've really appreciated the depth with which you ask questions and what a beautiful light you are in this world. Thank you for doing this
Thank
and
you.
for this beautiful podcast, actually.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Lots of love. We had the call with lots of love and gratitude on both sides. That's wonderful. I see you in the next one.
100%. All right.